now going to move on, and I'm going to introduce Irena. Irena is part of the Economist group, and she is the author of a study that was taken, a global survey undertaken for this conference, Pride and Prejudice, Attitudes and Opinions Towards LGBT Inclusion in the Workplace. Irena, will you give us the overview of that?
Thanks, Annie. Good morning. So I have 10 minutes. I better be quite quick. I have quite a lot to share with you. So, is the presentation?
Oh, no, not another technological problem.
Yeah. Sorry, I have some slides. Okay. I better go there then to see what I'm saying. So, as Sunny mentioned, we actually did a research in October and November last year. The idea was really try to capture in some way to measure the current perception and really treatment of LGBT at work. So to do that, we did a survey. We used our global panel of executives. As you see, it's quite a global survey, so we interviewed around 1,000 people across the world, 104 countries. Obviously, always we have a bit more representation in North America and Europe, but still we try to be as global as possible. We have more men. Obviously, this is actually one of the bias that we have discussed. Normally, when you interview executive, men are always the majority. And also in terms of size of the company, we try to interview executives from big companies and small companies. The idea is really to share the main highlights of this research, which could hopefully be an input for today's conversation, but also in general, I think it's interesting because it actually highlights concern which needs to be addressed for, be able to draw a roadmap towards further progress for the LGBT community. So the main takeaways of the research. First takeaway, which is quite maybe not so quite obvious in the UK, but not so obvious when you think about the global scope of the research. So there is little open aversion against LGBT communities. 4 in 5 executives are quite comfortable working with an LGBT person in any capacity. Also, 9 in 10 executives think that actually an inclusive and diverse workforce is a key business advantage. So little overt animosity towards LGBT. This is actually important because if you look at research, quite a lot of people are still closeting themselves in the workplace, 52% in the US, according to research. So that's quite promising and quite reassuring. In terms of looking at progress, at perceived progress of the LGBT community in the workplace in the past 5 years, what we've seen is that the percentage of people that thinks that there has been progress is actually lower than the percentage of people that thinks that there has been progress for racial and ethnic diversity and gender diversity. This is somehow disappointing, but then again, it's quite interesting looking at if you look more in details at the respondents, we see that, for instance, familiarity helps. People which have been working or are working together with LGBT people actually are almost twice as likely to say that in their company there has been a strong progress in the past 5 years. Also, it's what is highlighted by the research is the key role of LGBT advocates. In reality, companies in which there are very prominent LGBT people in their management or leadership, those companies are the ones that are five times more likely than those without this kind of characters to view the same level of progress. Also, what is quite interesting is the last point, that companies which really have very prominent LGBT people and advocates are the ones which are more likely to really want to invest more in LGBT inclusion and progress. If we look then at the role of business and business policies and CEO in society, more in promoting and protecting LGBT, we have actually looked at different elements. The first element is really how business leaders and business policies are perceived as kind of advancing the LGBT cause. What we see here is that 60% of respondents thinks that the management, the C-suite, have really an imperative to protect and to advance LGBT people. What is interesting as well, again, when you go into the, you delve into the demographics of people responding, you see that millennials and women are much more likely to think that this is an imperative for the business. Men, older men in general, have less of a feel it less strongly. So on one side, also, there is this role of the companies and of the leadership to really advance the cause. On the other, there is there seems to be a very much a lot of focus given to the culture and the values of the company. So the executive, the leadership, really needs to have a role also in shaping the culture of the company to make it more inclusive for LGBT community. The other aspect, more in general, the company role towards LGBT, anti-LGBT legislation. So the broader role of the business in terms of the general legislation in the country. What we find is that 2 in 3 executives agree that companies need to do more to protect LGBT community in countries where there is anti-LGBT legislation. There is obviously some geographic variation. If you look, for instance, in North America, 7 in 10 things that the business have a role in doing that. In Middle East, as you would expect, is a bit less. Is about just over 50%. Also, some kind of counterintuitive findings in that respect, in the fact that respondents generally think that really company needs to mandate compliance of their, LGBT inclusion policy in the countries where they're based, but also at the same time they do think that they need to consider culture and social and local beliefs in the formulation of their workplace diversity and inclusion policies. Interesting enough, respondents in the Middle East and Africa, which you would expect are to be more traditional, are also the ones that are most likely to actually back cross-border compliance with diversity code, which is quite promising and interesting finding. The other thing I wanted to touch upon and share with you, since we are really discussing about what is the cost of exclusion in a way. So we have actually tried to measure somehow the connection or the link between social inclusion, LGBT inclusion, and financial performance of the company. What we see is that evidence are not so conclusive in the sense that only 1 in 6 executives believe that LGBT advancement can boost the bottom line of the business. But then, if you look, for instance, again at the business aspect on which really LGBT inclusion has an impact, you will see that, yeah, financial performance is just 17%, see actually a direct link with the bottom line. But then if you look at the dimension on which it seems to have the most impact, you see that it's actually about talent management, it's about employee satisfaction, it's about collaboration, it's about productivity, it's about innovation. So even if they probably don't see the direct link with the bottom line, there is a link, with talent, which is productivity, which are actually part of the economic performance of the company. So in a way, I would say, okay, maybe the direct link is not so obvious, but it is obvious, the link of the case of the inclusion in terms of better productivity, better innovation, better talent. This, again, is something that changes if we look at the specific demographics and type of respondent, and becomes, for respondents who are very much works with LGBT people or have important advocates in their company, those people are likely to see the case for inclusion in terms of financial performance much higher than people that are not exposed to LGBT people. This is something also I wanted to share, which is, again, a bit disappointing, and it's really the case for investing more in policies in favor of LGBT inclusion or in diversity policies. As you see, according to the people we have interviewed in our study, you see that the LGBT actually doesn't rank very high in terms of priority of further investment. What is interesting as well, I mean, you always have to put this data in a context, is the fact that it really depends on the level of familiarity with LGBT in the company, and also with the level of progress already of the LGBT in the company. These numbers is not surprisingly low for company where there's been already quite a lot of progress. So if you look at companies which have assessed the most progress in the past 5 years, those companies are probably less likely to want more investment because they think that there has been already enough investment. So just to wrap up in sum what this research is really about. So the first thing, as I said, is little overt animosity towards LGBT. The second thing is actually quite interesting, and it's the fact that sometimes being closeted is actually not helping the cause, because as we have seen, people who are actually exposed to work with LGBT are the ones that are more likely to want more investment, are the ones that think that most progress has been done in the past 5 years. So in a way, the lack of visibility may be hindering workplace progress. So that's actually something which needs to be considered. It's not just about ourselves and being kind of it's not just the personal choice, it's also the fact that not coming out is actually probably can have a cost also in terms of really progressing the cause of LGBT progress. The other thing is really the importance of the top leadership and the company policies in boosting visibility and in actually being out in society and really try to change not only the workplace but also the overall economy or ecosystem in which they operate. The other thing is this link which appears quite weak between LGBT progress and financial gain. That again, with all the caveats I have mentioned. So it's not about just financial gains, it's about also productivity, performance, talent. So that the link is much stronger. And really this business out in the world, as I said, really the desire for the business and the company to take action in society. So with this, I think I have used all my 10 minutes. And if you want, you can actually read the research is in the website. And I'm happy, we have a coffee break now, so if anyone has any questions. Thanks so much.